What's going on, everybody? Welcome to what is this? Bituation Room, Left Hook, America Unhinged reunion on a random Thursday, July 24th. I am Francesca Fiorentini. He is Wajahat Ali. He's constantly streaming. I've given up the stream.
I, I'm just a workaholic. I have no life. I'm a father of three children. Like most of the time, there's 800 kids in my home. I'm either playing with the kids or I'm just talking to interesting people. And I'm also
You're
kind
like
of a
the
masochist.
most in your DMs dude, aren't you? Like in a good way. Aren't you like, what's up? You want to stream?
Yeah, and I was like, Francesca, what are you doing? She goes, living my life. I'm like, you want to talk about like the breaking news? No, just do it, Francesca.
I've actually made a little bit of a pivot away from breaking news, but today I do want to talk a little bit about some of the breaking news around South Park, around Epstein, and then, of course, the ongoing genocide in Gaza and the mass starvation that is playing out. But don't tell the New York Times because they're going
No.
to have an even and balanced approach, as they always do. If you're here, yeah, we watch. I don't know. Before we begin and get to the stuff that I think you've been talking a lot about, I wanted to let you know that I've been switching it up and focusing on a little bit more like month long videos, not month long, but things that have a longer shelf life, so to speak. Not that this Epstein stuff is going away anytime soon, thank heaven. It is not. Finally, we're actually, maybe will be the thing. Who knows? Who knows? I'm not holding my breath. But I this week it's kind of interesting because there is a special legislative session in Texas because Donald Trump is trying to lean on the legislature to re-gerrymander Texas, which is a state that's already gerrymandered when it comes to congressional seats, so that the 2026 midterms are not a blowout and he does not face the righteous wrath from all of the policies hollowing out the federal government, the tariffs, the oops, I was best friends with a pedophile, on and on and on and on. And interestingly, I just finished this piece called How Republicans Failed Flood Victims in Texas, or more aptly, Can We Blame Red State Voters Yet? Which is truly the most forensic study from top to bottom. So many great articles I pulled in because there's been incredible reporting about how many Republicans, from Trump to FEMA and Kristi Noem to Greg Abbott, to Kerr County officials, to even the heads of Camp Mystic, where 27 campers died, including the head of Camp Mystic, how they failed at every fucking level. And
Yep.
how you're just to me, the Texas floods were so interesting because they are proof that the right-wing ideology, as terrifying and as fascistic as it is, because it is, but reality is not smiling on their policies. Do you understand? Reality of, let's ignore climate change, let's give more tax breaks to millionaires and billionaires, let's defund everything else, let's have no disaster preparedness. Sorry to say, but the reality of once in a 1,000-year floods are proving them deafeningly wrong. And no amount of the Democrats control the weather, there's no amount of that can really undo what we're seeing play before our very eyes. So I wanted to lay that out there in my latest piece. If you haven't watched it, I encourage everyone to go to YouTube and watch it, or wherever you're watching this.
And I'm glad you're on it, because what it reveals is something I've been saying for several years now, is that MAGA is a pro-death cult, and this is a pro-death movement. And you just have to see what happened in Central Texas, in the fact that, like you said, it was a top-down, bottom-up, epic failure of the most incompetent, reckless people who ignored this flood. And as a result, I've been saying this for a while, is that those deaths could have been preventable. And I blame the Trump administration and Republicans for killing more than 100 people in Central Texas, right? And we also have to see, this is part and parcel of the design, Francesca, is they want to dismantle the government. They want to dismantle all these agencies. They want to privatize it. They want Americans, folks, to be tired, to be hungry, to be exhausted, to be overwhelmed, so that they don't care that their money is being stolen. And then those people who end up in these prisons and detention centers, because I want to remind people that when Republicans passed the big, beautiful bill from hell, it gives $180 billion to ICE for more detention centers, more Alcatraz, Alcatraz concentration camps, right? Who's going to be in those new detention centers and prisons? Those prisons and detention centers, Francesca, are hungry. They need to be fed with more black and brown and poor bodies. And we remember, as climate change rages on, what just happened 2 days ago, the EPA will no longer do any studies on climate change. Why? Because the Republican Party, unlike other conservative movements, folks, the Financial Times did a ranking of right-wing movements. The modern MAGA movement is further right than China and is neck and neck with Russia. Republicans and Donald Trump don't believe in climate change. They say it's a hoax. So now you see friggin' free slave labor, let's be honest, incarcerated people fighting fires in California. What's better than, like, paying people minimum wage? How about pay them nothing? So we're going to see an entire population that is sick because now you got cranks, in charge of our health and human services. Measles is skyrocketing. Medicaid is going to be gutted. Then Medicare is going to be gutted. Then Social Security is going to be gutted. People are going to be working. And those people who are working, guess what? They're going to lose their jobs because Howard Lutnick, Secretary of Commerce, another billionaire, said they're just going to be replaced by AI anyway. And then all these services, they're openly trying to privatize them. National Weather Service, NOAA. And guess what, folks? When you privatize and gut these services and you remove qualified individuals, when a crisis actually happens, what happens? Go look at Francesca's video in Central Texas. People die.
Yeah, I mean, and what's crazy is, like, there is, to me, what I really want to focus on also is, like, in my cynical moments, I think the reality is there are just some people who would rather die than, vote for any more government spending, or in this case, take $10 billion that the American Rescue Plan under Biden offered this county in order to build flood preparedness and alarm systems and alerts, something that the state had denied them, Waj. 3 times they were denied. 3 times they were denied funding. And even then, the state of Texas only pays 5% of it, and every county's got to pay it back. But these are people who are allergic to taxes. The reason that it hits me, and particularly and really fucks with me, is because there were children who died. And, like, they cannot vote. They're not able to. So the people voting on their behalf voted for them to die. And it continues and on and on and on it goes. And
they don't care, Francesca. Let's be honest. They don't care. These Republicans, when you listen to them, they don't care. They're getting theirs, right? I want to remind folks that Sean Duffy, Francesca and I, of a certain age, we remember when he was on The Real World. He is now the Secretary of Transportation, right? Also the head of NASA, because, of course, meritocracy. As a result of the DOGE cuts to FAA and all the federal aviation and safety, right? Newark Airport literally went blind. And so Sean Duffy, moved his family, right? His family is supposed to land in Newark Airport. He's like, oh, no. I'm going to make sure that my family doesn't land in Newark Airport, but y'all, you're okay. And also in these red states, folks, another piece of news that people aren't paying attention to is they're lowering the age for children to work in factories, right? So they're going back to the 19th century, right? Not their kids. Oh, no, because their kids will go to private schools. Their kids get vaccinated. Ted Cruz and his family, while his state is freezing to death because Texas, due to political reasons, is not on the national grid, has its own freaking grid that keeps failing. Where was he, Francesca?
No, he's like, this time he was in Greece, before he was in Cancun. I mean, this is the question, though, and I think that the opportunity that Democrats have to really make a case, because it isn't just about survival. So, like, in my cynical moments, I say some people would just rather die. But in the moments where I see hope is when you can actually say we can make even the economic case, the basic economic case. I mean, Texas is a perfect example, and Texas is a battleground. I mean, look at the way they're gerrymandering because they're so afraid
That's right.
of the backlash from their very real policies. And they know that ultimately Texas, being as huge as it is really a purple state. Like it is. It just, like most states across this country are purple. Texas is also purple. And so they have to deliberately skew the system, the already skewed system, to prevent people from actually voting to survive and to live. So my thing is like, how can Democrats actually use this as an opportunity? And sadly, I haven't heard enough of them speak about Texas to talk about how we could all be saving money with actual climate initiatives, right? It's not just, I mean, and Biden started to Inflation Reduction Act, but even that framing was so narrow. But really, this is about putting more money in your pocket, saving on energy when we actually have things like renewables, or we actually have, God, the amount that you could save when your home gets flooded, and who's going to insure you anymore? These are states that are uninsurable. Insurance companies, they're fleeing LA and California. They're fleeing Texas. They're fleeing Florida. These are places where even these capitalist industries are like, no thanks. This is way too expensive for us. So anyway, it's
White
all coming around.
supremacy is ultimately self-destructive, Francesca, and you're seeing it in real time. They have decided to delude themselves by investing in this romantic narrative of an America that never existed, and they want the feeling of greatness, right? I've always said MAGA is about the temporary feeling to be great again, right? It's like that Soma hit that they need, right? And that's what nostalgia is. It gives you this warped view of a past that never existed, but makes you temporarily feel good. And what Donald Trump and MAGA do is they said, you are the best. Everyone else is a pedophile. Everyone else is a criminal. I will make you great again. You will be a
all these
warrior.
pedophiles
Like,
we hide in our political party.
You'll go up against the blacks and the browns and the transgenders, and everything will be fine. Just trust us. And they're like, sure. And they will die due to white supremacy. I mean, Jonathan Metzl talked about this in a book. Before this happened, he went and reviewed in the South, and this was Obamacare. And he talked to a guy who had terminal cancer, and he said, I would rather die than sign on to Obamacare. And do you know what happened to him, Francesca? He died.
No, I mean, this is the reality. It's like, so again, in my cynical moments, and I'll talk about why we've got reason to be even more cynical, because so many things are playing out today that you and I covered in the first 6 months of Trump's presidency with America Unhinged for Zateo, which again, people can go back and watch. Our interviews are excellent. The show was fun. But in these cynical moments, you're like, I, as an American who wants to live, I don't want my cart hitched to a bunch of psychos who want to die. Like, this is where my California secessionist, movement is like, let's go, the one that isn't bankrolled by Russia and whatnot, because there's always a secessionist movement bankrolled by a foreign government. But like, you're just like, why do I even bother? This reminds me of before the 2016 election, right? I went to New Hampshire. It's first state in the union to vote in the primary, right? And I'm sitting outside of a grocery store because we were like, let's do something funny and just interview people going into the grocery store about what they think of the election. And I called it the desk of important thoughts. And we just interviewed like random, And this one woman goes, ISIS calls me every day. Yep, they do. They try to convert me, and they will not have me. And it is a caliphate. And she's going on and on. And in my mind, my response out loud was, are you sure it's not the phone company trying to get you to switch carriers? But in my mind, all I was thinking was like, you can have it. Like, I can't. Like, just have it. You have this part of the country. I'll have that part, because I don't know how to fuck with these people. I don't even know how we're living in the same universe right now. But Waj, maybe we are with this Epstein stuff.
That was a great transition. Fantastic transition.
Amazing.
That's why they pay you the big money. I just want to say one quick thing, then we'll talk about Epstein, right? That point that you had, that exasperation. Are we living in the same universe? I was invited to give a talk for the first time in like 6 months. A corporate law firm invited to talk to me about South Asian Heritage Month. I didn't even know there was a South Asian Heritage Month. Hooray, South Asians.
Oh, so
First
DEI
the spelling
is not
bee,
dead,
next the White House. We will get it, inshallah. But, I said to this corporate law firm, because at the end, a white woman who said, well, how about winning over the people where I'm from, Ohio, because they also feel left behind. So what I said was the following. I was really blunt. I said, I've been saying this for 8 years. All the data has proven it. I've said for 8 years that in my lifetime, I think we have lost 25 to 30% of Americans. They live on Earth 3. They think the Earth is flat, that Trump won the election that he lost, that vaccines cause damage. They're fighting with measles, herd immunity. Folks, I'm 44 years old. I have gray hair. How much of my life am I going to spend trying to convince people of my own humanity? And I paraphrased Toni Morrison, who said, at the end of the day, racism is a distraction, right? You have to prove you have a culture. So you write a book. Then you have to prove that you can speak eloquently. Then you have to prove this. You're endlessly presenting in front of a judge, jury, and executioner that ultimately holds you as suspect. And I said, there comes a point in time where I say enough is enough, because I have to fight for a future where my children don't have to put up with this bullshit. My children are brown skinned like me, have trisyllabic names, because if I had to suffer, they have to suffer. And I said, there comes to a point. But at the same time, I said, how do I reconcile with the fact that I also think people can change? And I also think you can't give up on people, because that's what happens to folks who think that, oh, there's no hope for me, right? I've talked to former racist KKK members, right? You need to give people an off-ramp. So the way I reconcile it, Francesca, is the following. The caravan has to move forward. I'm in that caravan. If I can get 70 to 75%, that's good enough for me. However, what I'll do, because at the end of the day, it's the Muslim in me, I'll keep the door open and my hand will be extended. But it's up to them to do the work, because relationships require reciprocity. But the caravan, Francesca, has to move forward.
Yeah, the migrant
I'm not going to sit there and waste a second of my life proving my humanity to people who see me as less than human. So that's me.
I think that's really important to know. And I think that actually is how you win, because I think, look at the right. Look at the way you and Mehdi were talking about the other day, sort of reviewing his, appearance on Jubilee with a bunch of fascists, and saying, look, the Overton window has shifted. And I think this is something that I've been talking about a lot on my show lately, which is, trying to really drill down on what's our Overton window? What is the left and progressives and people who believe in human rights for all and that no one is illegal? What is our Overton window, and how do we need to shift it? How do we lay down the law and the name of what game we want to play, rather than constantly playing defense and reacting to what they're playing, reacting to their pundits, reacting to their influencers, reacting to their policies. It's react. And of course we have to, because that is the news. But truly, we still have to carve out time to say, what train are we on? Where are we going? What do we want to push for? Who are our people? Because at the end of the day, we do not have to get everyone on board, but we do need to get a concerted and committed, percentage of Americans to do some hard work, to ask some hard truths, to get out the vote, or no matter locally or nationally, and to get involved. And so I think it is, again, it's like, you can't handhold every fucking racist. It's never going to work. But you have to prove to that racist that your plan is actually the one that's going to deliver. And, we're headed for some really dark days, because the reason that this Trump administration is so different from the last is because, as we said before, but I'll say it again, the line in the sand has been drawn between the haves and the have-nots, the 1% and the 99%. And you saw that since this, there's so many angles here, but since, even in the canceling of Late Night with Stephen Colbert, as Paramount would rather take care of its, profit and make sure that it can do this merger with Skydance versus keep on, a show that they know gets under Trump's skin.
It's one of those situations where you started with kids, right? The kids died. And that's what it breaks your heart, because you and me, at the end of the day, despite your secessionist tendencies, you and me do not need people to suffer in order to feel great again. And you're seeing these kids in Central Texas who died, right? And I think it's something that it says, okay, what will wake people up? And, speaking about the Epstein and the establishment, and I feel like the line in the sand, right, where people are like, enough is enough. What's so interesting to me is that MAGA's like, kids die in a flood, that happens. Climate change, I won't blame Trump. January 6th violent insurrection, nobody's perfect. Assaulting women and being held liable for defamation, that's okay. Lying to us about COVID, which led to at least thousands of people dying, that's fine. But you know what? Hanging out with and or giving cover to a frigging pedophile, that's a step too far. And you and I have been trying for 10 years to see, what is the bottom? What will be the bottom for MAGA? And Donald Trump just sinks, and they're like, yeah, it's fine. But then the Epstein scandal, and I think the reason why this is so interesting, why this is the bipartisan kryptonite that has finally harmed Donald Trump, right? And I want to give credit. I'm taking a crack at Democrats. It's MAGA. Because MAGA is the one leading this charge against Democrats. This is why corporate media has finally been given the permission to follow the story, which, by the way, has been in front of us for freaking 2 decades, folks. The money trail, the victims, the women, it's been there for 2 decades. But it's because of MAGA, because MAGA has been on this for the past 2 weeks, that Democrats and corporate media are like, oh, we could talk about it? So be it. For 10 years, folks, if I may, for your audience, our audience, MAGA has radicalized their base with conspiracy theories that says specifically people like me and Francesca, liberals, anyone who opposes Trump is part of an international sex trafficking ring. We're old enough to remember that if someone called you a pedophile, those were fighting words. They don't just call us pedophiles. They call us murderous pedophiles. They don't just call us murderous pedophiles. They call us devil-worshipping murderous pedophiles who are part of an international ring. They radicalized their base. Donald Trump promoted the QAnon conspiracy. Why? Because Kash Patel, Dan Bongino, Pam Bondi, the right wing said
Mike Flynn. Wait, this
Michael
is amazing.
Flynn.
So Michael Flynn's also, again, the guy behind the QAnon conspiracy, in part of it, right? Mike Flynn is now tweeting like, "Sir, America's gotta know. Or were you on the Epstein files?" I don't know what he sounds like, but you know what I mean? Something like that.
Sounds like him.
It's just like, it's amazing. Like, they've lost Mike Flynn. There's so many, I mean, obviously it seems also that like Bannon had dealings with Epstein, so he can't say shit about it. But yeah, you're right that like they poison pilled their audience so much on this one thing, because what I've been pointing out, and you and I have always pointed out, is, wait a minute, why would MAGA give a shit about abusers of women and girls? They worship people like Andrew Tate, Conor McGregor, who's got a rape charge on him, right? Like, they worship Donald Trump, who is convicted of sexual abuse. These are people who love and laud toxic masculinity. They think that actually it's good to make sure that women don't have the right to a no-fault divorce, let alone an abortion. They all want to lower not just the age of when you can go to work for children, but the age of consent, the consent laws Republican states have consistently tried to lower. And there are dozens of Republican pedophiles. I'm talking about child sexual abuse material sharers, people like George Nader, who worked on Donald Trump's first campaign. We're talking about one of Donald Trump's spiritual advisors, sexual abuse material. He raped a 12-year-old. Like, these convicted. They hide pedos in their party as a habit. But why Epstein? And the reason is because Bill Clinton was on the flights, because Bill Gates was on the flights, because there were, elite Democrats who were also on those flights and were friendly with Epstein, right? And you and I and the rest of the left is pretty much like, yeah, have them. We don't give a shit about Clinton. Like, Clinton has been like single-handedly tanking the Democrats' possibility for winning, because he comes in with his sloppy, endorsement. Is like, yeah, well, I mean, the West Bank really should belong to the Israeli. You know what I mean? Like, he's just like, he's so messy. You're just
so disastrous, Francesca.
Please.
I was in Michigan. It was so disastrous. The Democrats sending Bill Clinton. I talked to potential voters that could have won. And real quick, I could tell you the Democrats, I know we're going to talk about Israel and Gaza, but the Democrats messed up so big. I know that people hate hearing this, that they sent people like Bill Clinton to mock and shame them. And not only that, you know what these Michigan Democrats told me is that Trump and Republicans, in a very cynical but savvy move, they didn't kick him out. Democrats kicked him out of meetings. They sent Richard Grenell to talk to them. So they're like, all right, well, if Trump wins, we might have an in, because the Democrats don't give a shit about us or Palestine and are sending us Bill Clinton, who's mocking us. So, I mean, I know I obviously don't approve of this, but they're like, maybe because Donald Trump is quid pro quo on Palestine and the genocide. Maybe we could stop him. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No. I think, but what we're talking about is Epstein, and really, you're correct that this is the ultimate test of MAGA's loyalty. Will they stop barking up this tree that they've been told to bark up for years now? And that you're absolutely right. I was actually very interested in the Epstein case because it involved incredible journalism coming out of Miami, coming out of Florida. The Miami Herald's reporters, whose names I'm forgetting.
Julie Brown, I believe. Fantastic work.
Fantastic work. And every single, pretty much day for weeks before his death, they were going on MSNBC, they were going on CNN, there were new reports. I mean, it was really it was an incredible piece of reporting, an incredible story, and an incredible feat for these survivors, many of whom were trafficked at 16, 15, who were poor, like that they had come out and spoken out. And Trump's name wasn't at all in the mix. I mean, a little bit, right? But like not as a main focus. And then as soon as he died, it was wild because I was watching quite a lot of like mainstream news back then, and they just completely dropped the story. They didn't cover it at all. It was like it had never happened. And that, felt really suspicious, but it's like, all right, well, Trump's in office now, moving on. And so I think this is really the test, Waj, of will they believe Trump? It was Obama. Look into the Clintons. Or now, Waj, what are they doing? They're resuscitating the Russia story, which implicates Donald Trump and saying that, no, what's the angle again? What's Tulsi saying out here in these streets?
And so, I mean, we could laugh at it, but I also think it's dangerous.
Okay.
And I also think it's very interesting. Yeah. If you go back to last week, folks, because there's a lot that's been happening. I believe that Murdoch in particular is sharpening the knives against Donald Trump. And my case for this, Francesca, and why I think they're so desperate, especially with this Obama bullshit, is last week, Wall Street Journal, which is owned by Murdoch, drops, right, this bombshell that Donald Trump apparently wrote this salacious message to Epstein for his 50th birthday, okay? Donald Trump threatens them. They still publish it. Donald Trump now sues them. They say, nope, we stand by our story. Then, I think it was yesterday, God, time is a flat circle. They dropped the bombshell. It was Wall Street Journal. Oh, that flaming leftist rag owned by Murdoch says that Pam Bondi, the attorney general, had actually informed Donald Trump in May that he was on the list, which means, folks, they've been engaging in a cover-up for 2 months, all right?
Yes.
The same day they dropped that
Isn't that right around the time of the binders?
Yeah, late May. That's exactly. And then Elon Musk, folks, if you're keeping the timeline, a week later, Elon Musk, June 5th, drops that tweet. Well, folks, Epstein is in the files. Trump is in the Epstein files. Okay. The same day they dropped that yesterday, Fox, which is also owned by Murdoch, they just decide, Francesca, to publish a piece by Ned Price completely calling the Tulsi Gabbard Obama investigation as a distraction and bullshit from Epstein. So that, to me, I don't know if you saw that came out on Fox yesterday. And so the fact that Murdoch, man, that to me is like Murdoch realizes this is a weakness. Murdoch realizes that Epstein is the kryptonite. That being said, though, I am afraid, because I talked to Lev about this, and I just talked to Jared about this also. Donald Trump is going to be a cornered rat because he's negative 11, Francesca. The polls came out. This is the lowest he's ever been. Epstein ain't going away. His own base is cracking. It's not over, but it's a widening crack. This mother effer can't shut up. If I was his attorney, I'm like, shut the F up. Shut the F up. He can't shut the F up because it's all projection, and he's nervous and he's panicked. So he threw everything at the wall. Rosie O'Donnell didn't work. FBI files MLK didn't work. Hunter Biden didn't work. So my fear is that this Obama bullshit, right, that he allegedly doctored the evidence and the intelligence about the Russia investigation, it's all bullshit because it was a Senate intelligence report, bipartisan, headed by Republicans. Marco Rubio's fingerprints are all over it, which said that, yes, Russia interfered in the 2016 election and wanted Donald Trump to win. My fear is if a cornered rat who is desperate and doesn't give a shit about anyone except himself, what will he do? How reckless, how dangerous, how violent will he get, Francesca? And my fear is that he might actually try to arrest Obama because he has the DOJ, he has Pam Bondi, and he'll do anything, Francesca, than to actually release the files because it implicates him and a whole bunch of powerful people. That's where I'm at.
Okay. Finish the full conspiracy theory, Mr. Ali, because you started with, okay, what's Murdoch's role? Is this a deliberate rollout? They knew, like, what is they're deliberately planting the Obama did this. What I'm like not even sure. I guess I don't want to listen to Tulsi Gabbard and explain it away. But what's the angle that Russia and Obama set up Trump in the Epstein files?
No, it is a desperate ploy made by desperate people that will collapse under their own lies. It's Donald Trump's infatuation with Obama, who is his nemesis, younger, more charismatic, more popular black man who he can't just let go. He can't let go of him, right? And so he's thrown everything at the wall. Nothing is sticking. So he's like, Obama, Russia. So he's brought out Tulsi Gabbard, who also is Russia's girlfriend, right? To concoct this conspiracy that Obama and the liberals, just made up the Russia investigation. They haven't released any of the files and documents. It's a major distraction ploy. I think Rupert Murdoch realizes this is a 79-year-old man who is aging, who has cankles, who wears diapers, and I also remind people, folks, if we keep the receipts, the Republican establishment, Francesca, hated Donald Trump, right? Like, remember Marco Rubio? Remember Ted Cruz? Remember Lindsey Graham? What they said?
Are we greasing the wheels for a JD Vance anointment?
This is yes, I think they're sharpening the knives. And folks, last week, who did JD Vance meet?
He went to meet Murdoch, didn't he?
Boom.
Amazing stuff. Oh my God. First of all, just because you have cankles or wear diapers does not mean you are not a decent person. Okay.
Safe space for cankles and diapers. Sorry to anyone who I offended.
You are likely a baby, or you just gave birth to a baby. Cankles and diapers are involved in both of those things. Okay. I love this conspiracy theory, and everyone needs to go check out my video on the broligarchy and what I called the world after Trump, or as a fellow fan called it, twat, the world after Trump. And I need to show you, because Waj has been on Piers Morgan with none other than Jacob Chainsley, the QAnon shaman, the vegan who, while in prison, demanded that he only eat vegan food. And Trump has lost Jacob Chainsley. Fuck Israel and fuck Donald Trump. First of all, I mean, incredible that also they are turning on Israel as well. With all the money that they spent on Tim Pool and Benny Johnson and the Nelk brothers or boys, whoever the fuck. My theory, Waj, is a little more fun than yours, which is free Jan 6ers do Jan 6 part 2 on Donald Trump, not for Donald Trump, which would be the ultimate irony and quite funny. And yeah, maybe some others would join them.
You know what? That's okay. So I enjoy that. Okay. But the reason why I'm a bit skeptical is because I still think we're seeing fissures within MAGA. And everyone knows I love that Ken Watanabe quote from Godzilla, "Let them fight." Right. I want them to widen the fissures. I don't think the base will turn on him in such a radical view. However, the reason why I keep going back to Murdoch is Murdoch sees a weakness. It's like the Julius Caesar moment, right? They've been waiting for 10 years to get this mother effer out. And they realize we can get him through Epstein, the dwindling numbers, the fact that Americans hate that.
Why? Is it tariffs? Is it
tariffs,
volatility?
The money? He can't be controlled. He's too reckless. People are turning on him. He's underwater on everything, right? Mm-hmm. And I also think, because you mentioned the broligarchy, I think that's very important. I'm glad you did that video on that. Folks, who brought in JD Vance? It was Peter Thiel. Literally, Peter Thiel has been JD Vance's employer and funder his entire life. JD Vance had no other job. Senator, vice president. Before that, it's all Peter Thiel and the broligarchy money.
And have you even said thank you once?
Well, Peter Thiel is the one who introduced him to Donald Trump. He's like, for all your money, you get JD Vance. He goes, okay, I'll take JD Vance. And that's why I think JD Vance met Rupert Murdoch. And then you see the 2 bombshells drop in the Wall Street Journal. And what I think they're doing is they have groomed JD Vance for this position. And they want Trump's an old man, folks. And I
No,
feel
no,
like they've
dude. I think I get it. I think it's all happening for me in my little brain here. And I'm terrified and I hate it because the thing that these people all really love is the amount of deportations and detentions. Stephen Miller stays no matter what. Elon Musk will probably come back into the fold. I mean, this was sort of what I warned in that video, which is just like, Trump is a means to an end. And until, so long as he fulfills that, he's all hunky dory. But if he is not fulfilling that, and if he is so vulnerable as he is with the Epstein stuff, then they will drop him like a hot potato. And because when you give oligarchy that much air, they'll take over, and they have. And God, nobody's pouring one out for Donald Trump, but because I think the thing I've learned in my life is things can get worse and often do. And so, as someone who
but that's
lived
a
and
good point,
protested
Francesca. I think that's
through
a
the
good point.
W. Bush administration.
Anyone who's like, oh, it'll get better. I'm not saying it's better, folks. I'm not saying, oh, we should root for Donald Trump to be replaced by JD Vance. You know, I think like you, it could get worse because I don't underestimate Peter Thiel. I don't underestimate Elon Musk. JD Vance, folks, follows their same philosopher king who finally, thank God, they did an expose on this idiot Curtis Yarvin. Curtis Yarvin believes in kings and autocracies. He says that capitalism is not compatible with democracy. This is the guy that they love. Eugenicist, like all pro-Nazi science. They're racists, right? They believe in AI, the singularity. They're perfectly fine with the chosen people leaving to space and the rest of us will be damned. They want techno-fascist
I
utopia.
really want them to go to space. See
Well,
what
can
happens.
they go right now, Francesca, before
Go
destroying Earth?
now. Ooh, be the first.
Yeah, you go. Go without a helmet. Go without a spacesuit.
You know, and then the last little wrinkle on this. Sorry, I interrupted your flow, but
No, you got me. Go. I said what I had to say.
Trump's DOJ is meeting with Ghislaine Maxwell, woman serving 20 years for being the right-hand person to Epstein's trafficking ring. Why? What kind of poison will be sprinkled on her Diet Coke in this meeting? Oh my God. What they're meeting, like try for one day to not act guilty. Try to for one fucking day to not act guilty. And this is another thing that's been brought up that I think is important. It's like, remember when we learned, like under Biden, you're like, look, the president doesn't control the DOJ. The DOJ works for the American people, and it's not okay to weaponize it. And Biden was accused of weaponizing the DOJ, and Merrick Garland, oh my God, when he waited like 6 months to charge any Jan 6ers, he was totally doing the bidding of Biden. Like, no, you know, but now you're seeing a total collapse of the DOJ and the executive branch. Not that fucking there's any separations of power anyway, 6 months in to the greatest democracy on earth. But his deputy attorney general, Todd Blanche, is meeting with the Ghislaine Maxwell. Todd Blanche was his former personal attorney.
Yep.
I'm just like, what is the angle? So she comes out and is like, nope, Trump was never with Epstein, and now I go get to live free.
I think this is a quid pro quo meeting. It's like if you've ever seen Godfather 2, Tom Hagen gets sent to kind of like negotiate with the key witness, and he says, you could testify against Michael Corleone, or you can die an honorable death and kill yourself. I think what they're saying is the following: Elaine, you come out and you say Donald Trump, he was just a friend. I never saw Donald do anything, but do you know who I saw mess around with girls? You know who was on the plane? Bill Clinton. And then throw in another Democrat. I'll say Bill Gates because of the anti-Semitic conspiracy theories of COVID, right? So if I was him, I hate to give these people ideas, and I hate the fact that I know how they think, Francesca, because it makes me realize maybe in like another timeline, I'd be a really good supervillain. Is I'd go there and say,
they already have one Dinesh D'Souza. They don't have room for you. Sorry.
Yeah, they're like, Dinesh is like, it's either you or me. There can be only one. Highlander rules. We fight to the death, and we try to absorb each other's nerd powers. That's a deep cut reference for those who get it. Well, Rachel, I know Bill Gates isn't Jewish, but it's the deep state is rooted in an anti-Semitic conspiracy theory. Said the Jews are controlling, like, all these rich people anyway, this. But with what I think is happening and the fact that Todd Blanche, a fixer for Donald Trump, is being sent to talk to Ghislaine all of a sudden is the following. Ghislaine, you come out, you say the narrative that we want you to say, you completely exonerate Donald Trump, you throw Clinton under the bus, give me another Democrat, 3 people, and you will commit your sentence. And Ghislaine, I think, will do that. Now, this is where I think, because they radicalized their base, I'm going to do a Tropic Thunder quote, never go full conspiracy theorist. Go half, never go full. I don't think their base will be satiated, Francesca. I think the base is onto this, and they want the files.
Of course. Oh, God, the files are already there. Like, I don't understand what people, whatever. It's so silly. I mean, like, not the files already there, but I'm saying like we know Gawker published, speaking of which, tie-in, R.I.P. Hulk Hogan, smell you later, don't really care, man who, along with Peter Thiel, another villain from this show, single-handedly destroyed Gawker because, they were mad at what they were publishing about Hulk Hogan, and whatever, that's fine. But then, Gawker also published the little black book of Jeffrey Epstein that had a bunch of Trumps in it. It was like Ivana, Ivanka, Donald, everybody. And so anyway, the real thing.
I'm glad you mentioned that, though. I'm so glad you mentioned that, because it's all connected, that Peter Thiel also groomed Hulk Hogan to take out Gawker.
We're putting the pieces together.
Yeah, that's what happened. Peter Thiel is the guy who used Hulk Hogan to be the battering ram against Gawker, because Gawker outed him to be as being a gay white nationalist. The stress on the gay.
Yes, that's right. I forgot. I thought it was just, but of course Peter Thiel had his own reasons too. Yeah, they outed him, and he was like,
and
"Only
Hulk
I
Hogan,
can drive my boyfriend to
with Jared.
suicide."
It was so painful. Hulk Hogan died today, a huge pop culture icon. I loved Hulk Hogan growing up. I used to watch him. He used to be my favorite wrestler. Then Macho Man was my favorite wrestler. But you grow up and realize it's all a myth, Francesca, because Hulk Hogan was a racist piece of shit. Hulk Hogan was like a Trump supporter. Hulk Hogan allowed Peter Thiel to use him to take out Gawker that did, like you said, great journalism. So you know what? Hulk Hogan's dead. F Hulk Hogan.
Yeah. Well, we will see with Ghislaine if she lives to tell the tale. I mean, at some point, even if she, look, I'm Ghislaine. I'm going to tell you right now. I'm Ghislaine. I'm safer in prison. I'm safe because I am so safe. I am way safer. Yes, we know what happened to Jeff. But I am safer in prison, because if anything happens to me here, you will know, like, at least, the people who got me will never live it down. Versus if I make my deal with the devil and I say Trump had nothing to do with anything, and then I go try and live in, the Bahamas, and then like an animatronic shark like eats me, something happens, I drink the wrong pina colada. Then it'd be, a tragic death. Who knows? Oh, she was swimming so deep in the waves. Like, that's bullshit. Then no one will investigate. But if I'm in jail, people are still invested. That's just where I'm at. That's where I'm at.
Can I ask you a question? If you're Ghislaine,
yes,
and you had all the dirt, because she did, folks. She was complicit. She was a partner. She groomed. I mean, she is a supervillain.
Daughter of a Mossad agent.
Potentially. Yes, that those connections with Israel, they will be juicy. Her father, for example, was a spy and a man who also died under mysterious circumstances, and also defrauded a whole bunch of people. But I digress. If you're Ghislaine, I would have something associated with me, or I would just lie just to stay alive. That I would say there's a kill switch, that if I am to die under mysterious circumstances, files will be released.
Yes.
And I think that's what she said to keep her alive, because that's the only reason she's alive, Francesca.
Is that if she dies under mysterious circumstances, she will put out like full files.
Yeah, files will be released. I have the files in safe locations, and Ghislaine, it's not Ghislaine, it's Ghislaine.
Ghislaine, yeah. No one's saying Ghislaine. I don't even want to say.
Yeah, it's not Ghislaine.
Which way did the phone call go? Did it go from DOJ, Trump's people inside where she's being held, or did it come out from? Did she use her collect call to be like, "Here's the thing"? What do you think?
Lev told me that he thinks the leaks are coming from within the White House, and a lot of people are saying that it's Dan Bongino. But so.
Oh my God, the Lego Man.
The report that said Bongino and Pam Bondi had a major fight, and Pam Bondi's accusing Dan Bongino of leaking. Then he got pissed off, and Bongino, according to the Wall Street Journal article, is pissed off because his brand, folks, was so associated with uncovering the deep state that now he's losing his brand and his viewers who see him as complicit in the deep state. I love it.
And
I
we all
love it.
know he doesn't like his job. He's like, man, I wake up and Cash is still there and I can hear him and the walls are so thin and, there's a desk and like, I'm not meant to be in a suit. How do people do this? 40 hours a week, sometimes 50, 60. Like, he's so mad that he actually has to do real work. It's amazing. This is the thing about the deep state. They also like show up to work on time. Like, they also work long hours. Like, I think they're just mad that they're holding down a real job instead of, a podcaster schedule like me. Although if you're like Waj, it really is way more than 40 hours. Robert on YouTube says, if JD Vance takes a chair, Dems will fall over themselves with mission accomplished. We got him. Now it's time to heal cooperation. That is so true. Oh my God, that's so painful to recognize. And
very painful, but sadly, I think you're right. Thank you for the $7.
I'm not
I can ask you this. I don't know if I've asked you about this last week, because I like to keep receipts, as you know. Nancy Pelosi, and actually, no, I haven't. I know I was waiting for this because I wanted Francesca to do the Nancy Pelosi impression. Nancy Pelosi was on MSNBC. She was asked by Chris Jansen about the Epstein files. And did you see what Nancy said?
Well, I saw your earlier interviews. I imagine she said something like, we need to get back to the real issues concerning most Americans.
And bread and butter issues.
The bread and butter issues, the kitchen table issues.
Bitch, the kitchen table, every kitchen table in this country is going, so Epstein didn't kill himself, right? Trump was on the flight logs, right? Trump was a client, right? Every kitchen table is talking about this while, yes, simultaneously, groceries are getting more expensive. Everything is insane, but it's a beautiful distraction that actually, for the first time, I do feel confident that it is not a distraction. This is a real story. Real harm was done to people, and real powerful people are involved and were involved, and it does matter. And so, like, usually it's like, there's so many Trump stories and there's all a distraction from everything else he's doing. But this one, I'm just like, let's go with it. Let's keep going with it. Let's keep cooking. But I do want to say that in distraction land, before we get into serious stuff, it is very funny that Donald Trump apparently was perturbed, annoyed by South Park. Now, the reason South Park is sort of interesting and why their insane parody in their opening episode last night matters is that South Park just signed a $1.95 billion deal with Paramount for 16 more seasons, something insane. Anyway, like they're solid. They are fine. They don't need the money. And simultaneously, Paramount is like, okay, we're going to get rid of Stephen Colbert and The Late Show. In part, maybe because he makes Trump mad and he mocks him every single night, but also, our finances and blah, 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 blah. And it's cheaper to make animated stuff. It just is. So this was just a little clip from last night. I don't know if you've seen it, and I don't know.
I saw the whole episode.
It's just very fun. So good. Okay, so then after this, did you see the sort of the post, the unlisted follow-up, the PSA? It's amazing. So I think afterwards they put this out, and this is South Park winning the lawsuit against Trump / not winning the lawsuit against Trump. And then they have to do propaganda for really it reminds just what Paramount did. Like, oh, we could do $16 million because he had asked for like $900 million or something insane.
$25 billion, I think he sued them, and then they went back and forth, and this is totally them ripping on. This is why it's so awesome. Totally them ripping on Paramount, the company that just gave to Donald Trump, the company that just gave him $1.5 billion the day before.
Yes. Okay, a little bit. This is like a total play on the Jesus commercials. God, that was disgusting. And I just want to say, I really don't support the use of AI. Even when it mocks Trump, I hate it. I'm like, they should have just found someone to do that animation. But that was funny.
I mean, look, Matt and Trey, I don't agree with all their politics. They're libertarian. They kind of both sides it a bit too much, but I'll give them credit. They'll always go against power, whether Democrats or Republicans. And the fact that this is why I think it's so great. If you haven't seen the episode, again, the timeline, Paramount has bent the knee to Donald Trump. Paramount has literally bribed him for his bullshit lawsuit against 60 Minutes. They would have won that lawsuit. They chose to bribe him. Why? Because Sherry Redstone, the head of Paramount, wants to grease the wheels and get this merger with Skydance done. So that's why they also got rid of Colbert as another offering, chum to their lord. Donald, are you happy? Donald's like, I am happy, I am pleased. And then he said, Kimmel might be next. You know who also owns Daily Show? Paramount, right? So that's why that might be on the chopping block next. So Matt and Trey got all this stuff into this episode the day after they signed a $1.5 billion deal, which, folks, in that deal, the money's guaranteed. The money's guaranteed. So even if Paramount cancels South Park, they get the money. And they decided with two middle fingers to both Paramount and Donald Trump, we're going to go all out, which is why respect. And also, more importantly, Francesca, going back full circle to what we're talking about, the sharpening of the knives. Murdoch comes out. Fox News comes out. Epstein's cracking. And now what do authoritarians and especially Donald Trump hate more than anything? They hate being mocked and laughed at. And this guy, they literally undress the emperor and mock his penis, which is why I think it's important.
That was also really gross. And I don't think it was small enough, but they had to make it come, like they had to have it scoot out from underneath his belly. So it had to be, but it was upsetting and brilliant. Look, we have to go to some not so, not as fun news, which is what the mass starvation that is playing out in Gaza. I mean, when we, at the beginning of the summer, in the spring, basically, when after the ceasefire ended, the brief ceasefire, obviously, between Israel and Hamas, and Israel violated unilaterally, it was clear that no food was going to be let in, and that in a matter of a couple months, there was going to be mass starvation. Well, we're at that moment of mass starvation. We've been in that moment of mass starvation. And, they're like the amount of aid that is just, it's like people have not eaten in weeks and days, depending on, who you are. I'm just a little bit of this. 113 people have died from starvation-related deaths. Obviously, the most vulnerable, like children, disabled folks, are the first ones. And then we all know that the only aid distribution is being done by this completely compromised organization called the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, started by two Israeli businessmen, by the way, registered in Boston with the or in the US, coming out of the Boston consulting group, that actually also has broader plans for Gaza that I detailed in one of my other pieces about 5 of the craziest ideas for Gaza. And they have been open firing on starving Palestinians who are waiting in line, sometimes traveling for miles and miles and miles to try to get a chance to survive. And they're open firing on them. And then, as we heard just earlier this week, Netanyahu's still going with this line that, there's aid coming into Gaza, but it's being stolen by Hamas. And of course, nothing could be farther from the truth, as we see images of again, babies and children with full spines out. I mean, it's just like, this is a man-made, mass starvation. And I guess, I don't know, there's a few angles we could go with. I mean, one interesting piece is getting mad at our news media outlets for not even talking about this stuff. I heard anecdotally that maybe, Morning Joe has been talking about starvation. It somehow seems like starvation feels like a safe thing to talk about, because it kind of feels like something that happens. We're used to seeing that in like sub-Saharan Africa. Oh, it's a lack of food. It's poverty. No, this is very much deliberate.
That's right.
And, it's interesting because like a week ago, the New York Times published an op-ed that was like, what's happening in Gaza is a genocide. I mean, starvation is a tool of genocide. That is part of genocide, next to direct killing. And then just yesterday, they published another op-ed that said, no, what's happening is not genocide, as if they're giving like equal sway to people who are like pro-genocide, it is happening, it's not happening. And
Francesca, not just the asymmetry, That article that this is a genocide was written by one of the most preeminent scholars on the genocide, Omar Bartov of Brown University, who is Jewish American and Israeli, spent formative years in Israel, and is an authority who at a year and a half ago resisted calling it a genocide, but now has come around and said, okay, I studied genocide, this is genocide. And who do they have for both sides saying it's not a genocide? Bret Stephens.
Tell us more about who he is.
Bret Stephens, that racist hack at New York Times, my former colleague when I was a contributing op-ed writer who scours the internet for any critique of him, and then went to the masthead editor who then called me and said, hey, listen, Bret is a colleague and maybe it wouldn't be right to, criticize your colleague and say that he's laundering or promoting racist talking points. And then I said, what? And then I found out that same Bret Stephens, who's against safe spaces, has narked on nearly every single other writer, oftentimes women and people of color, by searching their critiques, and went to the masthead trying to get them fired.
Oh my God. Wait, he tried to get you fired from where? CNN?
New York Times. He's the bedbugs guy. He's also the guy that talked about the, diseased Arab mind, completely racist, like friggin' insanely genocidal Zionist with a history of just mocking and ridiculing his own newspaper because his articles are so laughably bad. That's the guy they brought out as a counterpoint to an Israeli Jewish American preeminent scholar on genocide.
I mean, it's so sick, and who even has the stomach for this shit anymore? Like, who in their right minds is looking at the New York Times and going like, yeah, this is a very reliable place to, like, why? You're being lied to and groomed when you read a headline like, no, Israel is not committing a genocide. Please. And the reason I can even go here is because my mom is subscribed, but do not subscribe and rescind your subscription for the New York Times. I'm sorry. Like, I know there's good people working there, but this is so irresponsible of them. And also to put it in the op-ed section, just make it an article. It is a genocide. Like, nut up, write an article about what is happening, quote the genocide scholar who lived in Israel, like, quote Bret Stephens one time, but don't give him the whole fucking, anyway, it's so gross.
Francis, can I say what makes it more infuriating? You don't have to be parents, but we're talking about children, right? The common link of why people are probably getting outraged. In Texas, we started with Texas. Children died due to recklessness, incompetence, and greed. Epstein, these were children. These weren't young women. These were kids who were groomed, right? And then we see Israel. In the last 3 days, that number is going to increase. We know that Israel, due to its man-made starvation, has killed at least 22 kids, Francesca. We've seen the photos and videos of these kids with their rib cages out, right? Well, you talked about the killing field. That was a term given by IDF soldiers, according to Haaretz piece, where the IDF soldiers said that their commanders told them that these starving Palestinians who came to these food aid distribution sites, they said they were commanded to shoot them. His exact words were, it's a killing field. In the past 2 months, since May, more Palestinians have been killed at these food aid distribution sites than all the Israelis who were killed on October 7th. And then the New York Times has the audacity, American corporate media has the audacity to gaslight the world, which has been radicalized in real time because a freaking genocide has been streamed to our phones, and says, no, it's not a genocide, let's do both sides. And what makes it even more infuriating, and I haven't talked to you about this, was when Benjamin Netanyahu, a war criminal, visited 2 weeks ago. Francesca, did you see that photo? That bipartisan photo?
Oh, yeah.
And who was in that bipartisan photo smiling with Netanyahu?
Yep.
I mean, it is, especially, Francesca, when the Pew poll, the Gallup poll, the CNN poll just came out 3 weeks ago that said that your base is now radicalized. It's pro-Palestinian. A majority of Americans are pro-Palestinian. The world is against this. And they're like, we still don't care. We're still going to take a photo with this war criminal.
Yeah.
Sorry for my rant.
No. I think that it's apropos, and also, I was asked about it by, I think a patron. I'm sorry, I'm forgetting your name. Asked me what I thought about the photo. Where you have, there's Adam Schiff, there's Klobuchar. This is a Democrat whose name I'm forgetting. There's Schumer.
Rosen's in there.
Jackie Rosen, right? Chris Coons. And your boy Cory Booker hiding.
How is he my boy?
I mean, one's boy. He's nobody's boy. I mean, he's like, I didn't stand in diapers for nothing. Oh yeah, Schiff right there.
Yeah.
Schiff is right there next to fucking Ted Cruz, guys. Meanwhile, Adam Schiff has made his name in, standing up against Donald Trump, standing up against the January 6th insurrectionists. AIPAC, the Israeli lobby, supported Republicans who were election deniers, who supported the J6 riots. This is the type of bipartisan bullshit that the American people are fed. And so absolutely, my thoughts on this photo are it's sickening. And I have a piece coming out very soon about a little woman named Kirsten Sinema Wadge, also a massive recipient of AIPAC, who is out here spending money that ain't hers still, even though she's out of the Senate. And to me, Kirsten Sinema is so fun and so easy to hate, but she really is emblematic of how unaccountable and undemocratic the Senate is, and especially Democratic senators. These are 50 of the most, or whatever, 48 of the most influential and important Democrats in our country, out of 100 of the most powerful, influential, and important lawmakers in our country. That should be a far bigger body. That we know the Senate, despite the Congress being gerrymandered to fuck, the Senate is way worse. Senate is the most undemocratic institution in this so-called democracy. It is not representative of people. And these senators, I mean, how are you going to win? How are you going to win? This man is wanted for war crimes, for starving babies, for directing IDF soldiers to snipe children in the skull.
Yep.
How you gonna take a photo with him? Get the fuck out of that room. I don't give a shit. Even if you were in that room, you need every aide telling you, get out of that room. You do not take that photo.
And I'm so glad the community picked up Senator Maria Cantwell from Washington was in there as well. Exactly. I think that's a really important point, Francesca. This was a deliberate, intentional, posed photo. This wasn't just like an overhead shot of you and me talking. This was like, hey guys, look at the camera. All right, say 1, 2, 3, corruption. And the fact that they're ignoring their own base, they're ignoring the majority of Americans. They're ignoring their own polls. The fact that Schumer to this day has not endorsed Mamdani with each increasing day, I think this establishment Democrats are completely telling on themselves. Jeffries and Gillibrand, the fact that these New York Democrats spent the day a couple of weeks ago on Sunday News, instead of talking about the Republican bill that passed the next day, asking Mamdani to condemn a chant that he never said. It's I mean, I'm at a loss for like what more do you need to see, folks? The power of AIPAC, the power of donor money, the corrupting influence, the ideological dehumanization of Palestinians. Like, they don't give a shit, French. It's like, don't you want to run again? Don't you want to, like, I don't know, help the Democratic Party? And they're like, no, we'll still take a photo with Netanyahu. It should be infuriating, especially as children. It's phase 5 starvation. It's phase 5 famine, man. Palestinians are going to be dropping dead from man-made starvation. Children are dying because Israel doesn't give an F. It's a genocidal regime, and they're doing it openly with the help and support of Democrats and Republicans. Yes. And it's just...
And you sent me this, and it's important that just today, remember, there was hope that maybe the Trump administration didn't want to get dicked around by Netanyahu the way that Biden was. But no, it turns out he likes to get dicked down by Netanyahu. And here you go. Steve Witkoff just got recalled from the, discussions and talks with Hamas on a ceasefire. He's now saying that the Palestinian group shows a lack of desire to reach a ceasefire in Gaza. I don't know. Maybe they don't have the strength to negotiate with you in meetings because they don't have the calories or whatever. But it's been really clear. The last I checked, really, and I think Dropsite has been doing some incredible reporting on this.
Yeah, really good.
Hamas wanted, some guarantees that basically the ceasefire that they did agree to previously, which was supposed to be a phase 1 and never even got to a phase 2, that if they go to a phase 2, do another ceasefire, there would at least be a chance for a lasting ceasefire, which is what they want. And that means allowing all aid in. It also means allowing building materials back in, because people are living in rubble. They cannot live their lives. It is really hell on earth. And I think there's two things I want to say. One, it makes total sense to me that anti-Semites and right-wing opportunists like Marjorie Greene would come in and try to fill a lane that is not being filled by anyone, right? Now, let's be honest and say progressive Democrats in the House have introduced the Block the Bombs bill, that if your Democratic congressperson is not signatory to, you get on the fucking phone and call them. Delia Ramirez, Sarah Jacobs, Pramila Jayapal, Mark Pocan, 18 other colleagues. AOC is, of course, included in that, even though I disagree with her distinguishing between defensive and offensive bombs and weapons and on and on and on. But this is the bill that is currently before Congress. I want to check, because I don't think that Marjorie Greene has supported this bill, but I could be wrong, because she seems to be bucking a lot of mainstream Republican thinking around this issue. Because in my opinion, Watch, she is no ally, but she sees a lane. She sees an angle. She's smart enough to say, oh, damn, you've got Theo Vaughn out here, talking about this, and the other podcast bros talking about Gaza. You've got Candace Owens on this. You've got all the anti-Semites that Mehdi debated the other day. This is a lane for me. And notice when she introduced her amendment to stop funding the Iron Dome, she didn't mention Palestinians. She didn't care about Palestinian human life. No, she focused squarely on Israel. I don't really care how it gets done. I do think you should stop aiding Israel and funding Israel. You know why I don't think that's anti-Semitic? Because I don't conflate that with Judaism and all Jews. I don't conflate cutting off weapons to a genocidal rogue nation with the faith of Judaism and and Jews around the world.
And you're not alone. Even your Jewish husband doesn't, and he's an authentic Jew. I think you said something really important there, and I just want to pick up on it real quick. The lane. There are two lanes, folks, if you've been paying attention, that the grassroots of MAGA, right, and Marjorie Taylor Greene and Tucker Carlson are more representative of where the Republican Party, unfortunately, is and where it's going. The two lanes are, our base seems to be against funding a genocidal regime, Israel, which is occupying Palestinians. Number two, why did AOC also get Trump voters in 2024? Why is Zoran Mamdani coming out of nowhere? And also, some Trump voters are supporting Zoran Mamdani, the economic populist message. And you saw Tucker jump last week on the economic populist message when he was giving a speech at the Charlie Kirk's Turning Point conference, right? So the economic populist angle, they're smart folks. They see Mamdani and AOC as a threat. They're not dumb. And also the anti-Israel, pro-Palestinian, America First angle is a lane that they're fully occupying, right? Yes. Theo Vaughn is in it now. Theo Vaughn had Joaquin Phoenix, the actor. Joaquin Phoenix is promoting a movie, but he said, hey, man, Theo Vaughn, I really appreciate you talking about the Palestinian children, right? This is a wide open lane, Francesca, for Democrats. Not just a wide open lane. The backing, the data shows, I want to go back to the Pew poll, Gallup poll, and CNN poll. They just came out the last couple of weeks. I mean, this is a win. Glastonbury, you had white kids chanting death, death to the idea. Kneecap, yes. Right? Yes. But they still can't let go of that. It's like a squirrel who can't let go of the nut. And the nut is the AIPAC money, the billionaire money, and the ideological commitment. I think the ideological commitment is more of the old guard, like Biden. I think like Biden had a wet dream about Golda Meir in the 1970s and he got stuck. But like they just can't let go, and they won't let go of it. If you guys think I'm crazy, I give you that photo that was taken 2 weeks ago with the war criminal Netanyahu, and I give you Gillibrand, Jeffries, and Schumer still not endorsing Mamdani, who will most likely be the next mayor of friggin' New York and is a Democrat.
What's so sick about these younger, and I say younger even though they're in their 50s, 60s politicians, is that I think Schumer might be ideologically a Zionist for sure. I don't think that being an ideological Zionist gives you a pass to greenlight genocidal crimes. I just want to
Agreed.
name that. But you look at Gillibrand or Jeffries or, Klobuchar. Like, these are people who pretty much for their entire political career, Israel has been increasingly a rogue nation that has done the opposite of what it said, that has negotiated in bad faith, that has continued to build settlements in the West Bank. And oh yeah, just today, the Knesset voted to annex the West Bank. Apparently, it's just symbolic, but it's like, cool, man. So really, it's a green light to whom? Crazy ass settlers who are killing people, including an American citizen just 2 weeks ago, Palestinian American citizen murdered by Israeli settlers and then prevented from getting much needed immediate emergency care because the ambulances, not that he was being surrounded, but the ambulances needed special permission to even access that area where he was because they live in apartheid in the West Bank, you guys. That's what happened. And so, like, these are people who are just doing it for the money. Watch, it's squarely for the money. And we can wrap.
No. I was curious. I wanted to ask you. Have you ever? I have asked you this before, but pardon me. I'm an old man. Have you gone ever to Palestine, Israel?
I have not. I would.
Has
love
Matt ever
to.
gone?
No, he's never gone.
So I've gone 3 times, folks. And if you go to the West Bank, in fact, you could go anywhere. Especially going as a brown man. I'm not Arab. I'm not Palestinian. I'm an American citizen. I mean, it's unmistakable. The racism, the apartheid conditions, and what radicalizes people almost immediately, especially Americans who are fed the lie and the story and the narrative. And you see many Jewish Americans who, when they get radicalized in this issue, when they go to the West Bank and then when they go to Hebron, and you sit there and you go, why is my taxpayer dollars paying for this apartheid system? This is inexcusable. This is indefensible. And the reason why I think I want to just take another crack at these Democrats. This has been going on for a year and a half. When they took that photo with Benjamin Netanyahu, at least 60,000 Palestinians have died. And that's a low number. The Lancet medical journal says it's probably 40% higher, Francesca. In the last year and a half, there are more child amputees in Gaza, Francesca, than anywhere else in the world. Israel has killed more Palestinian kids in the past year and a half than all the other kids killed in war zones combined. And now the world is openly seeing photos of children being starved to death. And these people still don't care, Francesca. They still don't care, which is why increasingly, and then seeing Nancy Pelosi last week, well, kitchen table issues, I think you and me might be on the same page. My other co-host, Danielle, there needs to be a culling of the Democratic Party. Yep. Like, I want this thing to just get rid of all. Yes. I don't need them. With fighters like this.
It's, I'm of a lot of minds, and the other thing I wanted to say was that I am upset at the lack of, I think, a mass resistance to what this genocide, the likes of which we did see under Biden. And I just want to take the moment to say that there's a reason there's not a much of a mass movement against what is happening. And that isn't because public opinion is not turned. It is because the repression has increased many, many notches.
Yep.
There was repression for free speech around Palestine when Biden was in office. Yep. We've kicked that up to a 12. If it was at a 9, we're at a 12 now. People are being disappeared for their beliefs, including writing op-eds. I mean, this is very, very, this is fascism. And so when people argue with me about what's the difference between a Democrat and Republican, I honestly tell you not much, especially on this issue. However, in every social movement that we have seen, other than, I would say, obviously, Black Lives Matter was very particular. It did pop off under a Republican presidency. But in terms of Occupy Wall Street, in terms of Palestine, in terms of some of these movements that really pushed the boundary, and really, again, that Overton window of really making us think about income inequality and wealth hoarding, as well as Palestinian human rights very differently, I do think it was in part because they happened underneath Democratic presidencies and there was a minimally less repression. And I know people disagree with me, but I really do think that is why there's a fear. Look, here in LA, let's just keep it 100, man. People came out to protest ICE in mass in early June. But when the fucking cops got called, not cops, when the National Guard and Marines were called in, this was not a moment to play. And a lot of people did get scared and stayed home. A lot of people went out. They were trampled by cops on horseback. But a lot of people stayed home. And whether right or wrong, it's understandable why people would be afraid in these conditions. Again, this is what fascism is, y'all. It's the low-level domestic warfare that you don't always recognize, but ultimately is keeping you home, making you not want to stick your neck out, making you not want to do as much because you are afraid. And this issue is no different. So again, there is a reason to fight for a better opponent in places like the White House. And this is one of those reasons, is so that they don't sick ICE. Because you think they're building these detention centers only for fucking immigrants? As if that weren't egregious and awful enough.
Nope.
Nah, man. They're building it for anyone who steps out of line. These are the detention centers that will be holding, if you have another mass movement, that's where we will be sent when we are arrested. Right. Okay? This is what's happening. So it's a hard pill to swallow, Waj, because I feel like it really fucks me up every time a blue MAGA gets in my mentions and tells me that I didn't encourage people to vote for Kamala. And if I cared about Gaza, I should have, when they know that's a lie. And also they don't even care about Palestinians. They're just trying to use it as a fucking, something to beat over the heads of people who do.
It happens to me all the time too. And I'm like, oh, just do 3 seconds of research and you'll see that, I criticize Biden. I still criticize the Democrats. I criticize Kamala Harris. I talked about the genocide, and I still stand by what I wrote in The Guardian and The Progressive and what I said on every channel I could, that, folks, if it's between Harris and Trump, there's no both sides. There will be much, much less damage to the United States of America. With Trump, is like a murder-suicide pact, and I give you the past 6 months. Yes. And you should be able to handle this conversation in a nuanced way. And I think within the Democrats, you still have a little bit more opportunity to protest, and you wouldn't have ICE agents friggin' terrorizing people, and you wouldn't have friggin' Rumiza Ostrich captured, kidnapped off the street simply for friggin' co-writing an op-ed, and you wouldn't have people literally detained to Secot prison in El Salvador, where $6 million of our taxpayer money would be given to friggin' Bukele, the worst Palestinian on earth. So I think, yes. I think we've got to keep it real, right? We try to we don't bend the knee.
We're not identity politics
are also
focused.
Pragmatic. And so this is a situation, folks, where, and I think, Francesca, to end this on a note, is it made a good point, right? We all know that Niemöller quote, first they came for, and then they came for, and then they came for, right? It's a lot of folks, let's be honest. First, they went after transgender folks, and I know a lot of Democrats are like, I don't like the transgender. Ew, it's too much. They've gone too woke. Then they went after undocumented. Yeah, they should go after those who don't come here legally. Then, under the Democratic presidency, they went after the pro-Palestinian activists. Aren't they too radical? Aren't they too extreme? And very quickly, within 6 months, they're going after legal immigrants, citizens, kids, Paramount, Colbert, right? They're going after Republicans now, even Don
Columbia University just bent the knee.
Yep, right. Fascists come for everyone. Fascists come for everyone. Donald Trump has even thrown his own base under the bus last week. He calls those people who still support the release of the Epstein files as weaklings and past supporters. So once a bully targets the weakest and punches him as a lesson to everyone else, you know how you can stand up to the bully? You need at least one other person or two other people to stand up for the kid who's being beaten up. And then the bully, because the bully is always frightened, cowers. And right now what we're witnessing is that bully is being weakened. That bully is being taken down by MAGA and Rupert Murdoch, and South Park gave us a huge opening by laughing at the bully and his tiny, tiny, tiny little penis. He will come for everyone and anyone, folks. This is why we need all hands on deck, 10 toes down. Democracy is a contact sport. Fascists come for everyone. Absolutely. And folks, we were only supposed to speak for an hour, but I miss Francesca. America Unhinged, I thought was a really good show. We tried to get more funding. But we had 100 days. We interviewed Zoran Mamdani. We had some great shows, great interviews.
shows.
Go back and check it out. But Francesca and I have been trying to do something every Thursday. So we're settling on maybe trying to do something Thursday 4 p.m. And
Thursday, 4 p.m.
Francesca, can do it on Bituation Room, which helps her. And then this is also live streamed on my Substack. And then later it comes on Francesca's Substack. So if you all like this and wanna hear us, we'll do it 4 p.m. Thursday. Let us know. And I also read some comments. I'm not as good looking as Francesca. You're right. I'm sorry. I'm a middle-aged man in my 40s. This is how I look.
It's okay. I get to do my makeup.
I still have some hair. There was like a nice little comment thread, Francesca, for a while, like, Waj looks like he's 45. If I get in my 40s, I hope I look better. I got like 3 kids, folks. I'm sorry. I used to be looking in my 30s. I had no idea. I saw photos. I'm like, oh, there was potential there.
I'm going to put everyone's comment on stage, so you got to say that to our face.
Say it to my face. Folks, this has been Francesca's Bituation Room. You have to subscribe to youtube.com/FranFio. We have to get her more subscribers. Also subscribe to her Substack. My Substack is The Left Hook. I'm a fool. I've kept everything without paywall. Everything is for free. If you can, give a few bucks because I have 800 kids. If not, I get it. Tomorrow at 12 p.m. I'm with, this week went by so fast. I'm with Danielle on the Democracy Is Show on her YouTube channel. And if you all like it, and if Francesca can still tolerate me, let's do this again next Thursday, Francesca.
We will. And I just want to let everyone know that I'm going to be streaming less live. If you guys know, I only stream Tuesdays for my show, The Bituation Room now. And then on Thursdays, I guess with Waj, because it'll be a really fun check-in. But I'm pivoting more to longer form. So please check out those videos, 5 craziest ideas for Gaza. They are both funny and awful. And then also this, sort of forensics analysis, this anatomy of a Republican failure in the Texas flood response and the lead up to it, and a forthcoming video about Kirsten Sinema. If you're a member on YouTube or Substack, a paid member on Substack, frannyfio.substack.com, or a patron, patreon.com/Bituation Room, you get early access. So I'll give like a day early access. Let you have a first crack at it. And again, it's something I enjoy doing much more than just live streaming. But it is a lot more work, and it's a lot more research and time and editing. And my wonderful editor, Brent, is just crushing it. So, yes. And thank you.
I'm so glad. You didn't ask me to do this, but I'm plugging it anyway. And I think you talked to me about it last week. Like doing more live stuff, longer stuff, excuse me. Francesca, had this training with AJ Plus when her long form pieces were really good. And I think those long form pieces also allow her to connect the dots and do it in the fantastic way. But it is, it's hard work, folks. And she's independent. So to do it well, to do the research, to do the editing well with the video and the music, it takes time. So if you have not become a paid subscriber, please do, because that'll help Francesca actually spend time doing those videos. And then those videos actually have a much longer shelf life that literally they'll last for 2-3 years and go viral if it's well made. Yeah. And hers are always really well made, especially that video you did was on the 5 myths or the 5 biggest, not myths, but the Gaza one that you did recently.
Yeah. The craziest plans for Gaza is just it's so insane. The Elon Musk Smart Manufacturing Center, Waj, Smart Manufacturing Zone. It's going to happen. And hey, guys, if you're in Seattle, not this weekend, but the following weekend, August 1st at Laughs Comedy, that's a Friday, and August 2nd, oh my God, the show on August 2nd, Watch, got so much better. We're getting this mayoral candidate that the Nation magazine is calling the Zoran of Seattle, Katie Wilson, as well as author Ijoma Oluo. Of course, Matt Lieb will be there. It's going to be good. And then also Houston, Texas on August 28th. That's a Thursday at the Houston Punchline. I'll be there. So, there's places to see me live doing stand-up, doing the pod. Waj, if I'm ever doing a live show in DC, you got to be on it.
Yeah, so I don't think you ever come. Just tell me whenever you come. I think people will enjoy it.
Oh, it'd be so good. And I'll see you next Thursday.
Next Thursday. Thank you, Francesca. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Take care.
And we'll take care. Bye.